Hi, I'm Todd Nauck. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So we are continuing work on this Young Justice sketch cover. Today's chapter, we're working on Tim, Drake, Robin, and adding the Copic marker colors. So let's get right to the coloring. All right, so we get zoomed in here, and we're just going to get to work on the basic colors here for Tim Drake. What I like to do is start with the skin tones. So I'm going to be busting out my lighter shades of the E family of colors here. So starting with a darker color first, just as with Impulse, same. Hopefully you saw the Impulse video. If you missed the Impulse video, I have it linked in the video description below, as well as all the inking videos and the original sketch video. So I'm going to keep you apprised of all the chapters in the video description below of each video for this series. So I like to start with the darker colors first. With the shaping, the shading, the shadow. I'm going to keep these things in mind with a light source coming from above for the most part, a little bit off to, what would this be? Or at least Robin's right side, we'll say, our left. A little bit to the side and above for the lighting. So that's going to be my light source. So I'm going to start with a darker shade of this lighter skin tone on Tim's face. Anything that's overlapping, like the sleeves, the short sleeves, or the gloves that overlap, anything that's further away from the light source is going to be the darker color. And then I blend in with the lighter color. So I'm moving through the Copic marker scale of colors from the E02, E01, E00, always moving that lighter color through the darker color I've put down, kind of layering in on top of that, moving towards that lighter color, or into that white space, to create that gradation. I do this with each element of the character, whether it be their face, the costume, the gloves, the cape, the hair, all that. It tends to be my go-to, is starting darker, working my way lighter, because I like to use that light color of the ink of that lighter color as the blending color, not using the colorless blender that many marker brands offer. Those are still fine. I like to use those for like different types of like effects, like a special kind of effect I'm looking to create, I can't even think of it. I'll have to come up with a video where I do a Copic marker illustration where I use the colorless blender to create some sort of special type of effect. But when it comes to blending the colors with Copic marker, and there are other brands, if you can't afford Copic, totally understandable. There's Touch, there's Olo. I know they're very comparable to Copic with a brush tip and blendable type ink. Artesa's a fun brand. I don't know if they offer a sketch marker yet with the brush tip yet, but they're still a solid marker as well. So I like to come in with these inks that are made to blend together. They're made to interact with each other. They activate each other. So when I come in with a lighter color on top of that darker color, it's activating that dark color I've put down and creating that kind of blending look. I like that kind of softer blend. I can always come back in with that darker color if I need a harder cut, a harder edge or line to that color moving to the next. If I wanted more of maybe like a cell animation sort of shading, where it's just a darker color on top of a light color and you have that nice line of differentiation between the two colors, that's still possible as well. If I want that would be going from a lighter color to a darker color. So yeah, now we're into the yellow parts of Robin here, getting his cape. Starting with kind of a darker yellow, I'm going to be moving to lighter colors. It's just kind of the same wash, rinse, repeat sort of approach for me when it comes to my coloring style. And it works well for me. I've really enjoyed working this way and getting that kind of nice, smooth gradation. And I can always mix it up. I can try different colors, different sometimes I do that for certain backgrounds. I'll have to do an illustration video for this sometime, where I use like a bluish green and a gray, or I've done like kind of purple, orange, yellow, and blending them all together to kind of create these different, like maybe like kind of like a sunset sort of background, and just seeing how the colors interact with each other and reactivate when the new color goes onto the paper over a previously laid down color. really can create some really cool, fun effects. And essentially, I'm creating a new color when I merge one color with another, much like we did on Impulse last video with the kind of grayish parts of his uniform. What was it? No, it was the smoke. I'm sorry, the dust that was kicking up, coming in with some grays and some very light bluish green, very, very light, but it kind of creates this kind of coolish sort of color to it. So these are the fun things I like to experiment with, playing with my markers, and I encourage you to do the same. And if you're never not, too many double negatives there. If you're never quite sure if you should commit to that color mix on your illustration, take a scratch sheet of paper. I'll do it all the time. I test it out. It's like, if I use this shade of yellow with this shade of purple, how would those two mix together? I kind of have an idea in my head, or I'm looking at photo reference and it's like, oh, I'm seeing some yellows and purples in this lighting. What would that look like if I were to put it on my illustration? I'll have a little scratch sheet of paper and I'll test it out. I'll put in some yellow and then blend the purple over into it, or I put down some purple and blend the yellow into that, and I see how are the inks working together? What sort of effect am I coming across here? What new color is being made with these two colors? Then if I like what I see there, I feel more confident moving that into the actual illustration, because if you're not quite sure and it doesn't go the way you want, the experiment goes wrong, and you try it out first time on the art, it's like, don't like how this worked out. Now you got to find a workaround, find some way to rescue the illustration, or maybe you have to start over. Just do it on a scratch sheet and you can save yourself a lot of heartache. Trust me, I've been there. Not uncommon. So yeah, the scratch sheet test for the marker colors can really, really allow you to think things through without having to commit to the illustration until you feel more confident that the experiment will work out the way that you hope. Or you find like this experiment will not work at all, so you just abort and think of something new. But always feel free to test it out on a scratch sheet of, like, I have some, like, sometimes I ruin an illustration. I was like, well, save the Bristol board because I can do a test on the back. I can test my colors on the back of this one that I've jacked up. So oftentimes I keep those squirreled away in like this little reserve pile of scratch pieces of paper. So now we're working with the reds here on Robin, getting the red part of his costume in with the different shades of red. And let's see, and then his trunks here, and then we'll move on to the next element. But while we're doing that, let me tackle one of your questions here. I love your backgrounds and in pinups. How would someone improve those? So if you're an artist and you're looking to draw comic book type stuff and you're drawing your backgrounds, whether it be for a pinup, whether it be for a cover, whether it be for interiors, it's all sort of the same mentality. You're creating an environment for your characters to live in, to interact with, to occupy. So I would say that first, learn perspective. Learn how to draw things in perspective. And that's with the vanishing points, because everything in that, like the buildings, say that you're going to draw New York City, where most superheroes tend to do their work. You're gonna have the lines going, or Gotham, Metropolis. You're going to have the lines of the building are going to go to a vanishing point on the horizon, like with my screen here. It's going to if you were to extend this top line and this bottom line and this line here, if you were to extend them all the way down to where they intersect, which would be way, way, way off, it would be on the horizon. That's a vanishing point. So you want to learn your vanishing points and how to draw like that. When you draw like a little cube, you draw like a little ice cube sort of shape. You have the square and then another square, and then you connect all the lines. That's essentially perspective that you're working with there. So learn perspective, really get adept at 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, and someday I'll have to do a video on this one as well. I need to keep a list of all these videos I'm talking about doing. But where you're getting the sense, the feel, the vibe of how am I going to create this world, and that's just learning the basics of perspective. Another thing to help with drawing your backgrounds is look at real life. When I'm in New York City for New York Comic Con, I am taking tons of photos of buildings I see everywhere, because I draw New York quite a bit, because I work with Spider-Man, I work with X-Men, I work with Avengers, and they're often a Daredevil. I'm drawing these characters in New York City. more often than not. So it's like, this is great. I'm in the city of the place I draw more often than I actually visit. So I'll take photos of buildings, of sidewalks, of street lamps, of parks, of sometimes, I'll try to get a shot that has the vehicles, the sidewalk, the buildings, as high as I can go. I'm doing vertical photos, horizontal photos. I'm gathering these photos as reference so that I can draw believable or different or unique backgrounds. Because if you look at the details of these different buildings in whatever city you're in, wherever it's small town to giant, big metropolis, you're going to notice that every building is kind of different. Some are brick and mortar and stucco, and some are glass and girders and steel, and so all these different types of designs and architecture are going to come into play in what we draw in our real world. It could be a house, it could be an apartment building, it could be a skyscraper, and everything in between. The thing is, it's just having that photo reference. And mind you, some buildings are copyrighted by the architect, so I don't draw the exact same building that I'm looking at in my photo. I just get that vibe, that flavor, that, okay, I'm getting that sense of some of the shapes, but then I'll create my own sort of shape. I'll tweak it in a way that I'm not drawing the exact building. There are certain things that publishers will say, this can't look like the exact building because we don't have the copyright to draw that building, which is totally understandable, totally respectable. So I have to create my own buildings, but looking at real life and then from there creating other stuff, because I'm not really an architect. I don't design and build buildings. So I look at real life and then I send that through the old filter machine here and bring it out to the other side of, I've created a new building. But I've studied some different types of buildings to kind of get a feel of what are some of the lines, what are some of the shapes that make up these buildings. If I want to do a steel and glass skyscraper, or something that's a little more kind of brick and concrete sort of look. How is that going to look? What are the textures? What are the lines? What are the molding that goes at the top of a building? Or the water towers that are on top of the building. These are the things I'm going to look at. These are the things I'm going to consider. Same thing with interiors. If I bring the character inside into an office, or into a living room, or into a waiting area, or into a doctor's office, a surgical room. I've had to draw surgical emergency rooms before, and operating rooms, I should say, is the more appropriate word. I'll look that stuff up because I don't spend a lot of time in operating rooms, thankfully. And the few times I have been, I've been unconscious, so I haven't been able to do a lot of studying there. So I have to look at photos, TV, movies. What do these places look like? And what are the elements that are in there? What are all the little details? If you were to draw my studio here, you'd have a TV and a DVD player and a bookshelf and framed art and posters. These are the elements that occupy the character's world. Do the same for your character. What are the things that are going to occupy it? It could be something like, they're at a shopping mall, or in the downtown, skyscraper buildings, Spider-Man swinging by. Or it could be something as creative or not real as the Batcave. You can make up a sorry to burst everyone's bubble there, bring the truth in, but the Batcave doesn't really exist from what I'm aware of. Someone made it up decades ago, and we have been having fun doing our versions of that. So you have the giant penny, you have a dinosaur, you have a big Joker playing card, that all these different trophies Batman has collected, as well as his computers, his hangar, his driveway for his car, and motorcycles and helicopters and all of these sorts of things. You're going to fill that out with elements that are connected to the character. So when it comes to drawing your backgrounds, learn perspective, look at real life reference, and then create your world your way based on what you're learning from looking at real life. And that will help you, I believe, create a believable background for your character. It takes a lot of practice, so keep at it. Keep trying and studying and practicing and learning from each illustration. Whether it goes well or doesn't go well, it's okay. It's a learning experience for what to do next time. So let's take a look at, thank you for letting me share a lot there about drawing backgrounds. So that's a big thing, and I know a lot of artists kind of shy away from doing backgrounds. If you want to do comics for a living, you got to take a hold of that and really get in there and get adept at drawing backgrounds, creating that environment and reality for your characters. So as we turn back here to Robin, we have gotten the cape in, we got the greens of his sleeves, his gloves, his pants, and now we're getting the hair here. Now with the hair, I start with kind of that bluish vibe because that's very classic. Because back in the 4-color process days, I had mentioned this in the previous video where they worked with 4 different colors and then dot patterns of these different colors to create any color they really need in print in the kind of the olden days of printing. For like Superman, Batman, a lot of the DC heroes that have dark hair, Superman, Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, Tim Drake, all had dark hair. Jason Todd, pretty much if you're going to be in the Bat family, you're probably going to have dark hair, at least if you're one of the fellas. So they used blue as the highlight to their black hair. So kind of maintaining that here to get that kind of classic DC vibe. But I'm going to come in here with a little bit of gray as well to kind of mute that blue down so it's not like this big bright blue sort of hair to him. So just kind of that choice there. I could have used gray for his hair, but then I think that would make Tim look too old because it would be the black moving to gray. Gray tends to give a sense of older. So that's why I think blue works really well. It maintains that sort of youth and vibrancy, and it really pops. I think it really pops as well, especially when we have the gray of his cape. I could have done a bluish gray there, but I think just the straight gray for the cape makes him gives him more that, gives it a bit of a darker edge to it, that kind of more that Bat family edge, more so than I think if it was a bluish gray. And of course, the bluish gray would then be competing, I think, too much with his hair. So having it just these regular shades of gray and then the bluish gray for his hair really allows for that differentiation of the color elements here on the character. Now I'm coming in here with some of the darker green to create some new, is that darker green or is that gray? I missed, oh no, I'm coming in with the gray here. Coming in with some gray for some for shadows, for some kind of what I like to go throw up some more air quotes here, realistic shadows, is coming in with the gray. If it's a darker shade of color, like kind of this red and green, that's, or at least a kind of mid-range, I want a mid-range gray. If it's lighter, like his skin tone or his cape, I'm going to come in with a lighter shade of cool gray. Right now I'm just working with cool grays. So as you see there with the little kind of the padding on his sleeves, going to throw a little bit of that gray on the bottom side of each pad because remember earlier in the video we established the light source is coming from above, so shadow, rule of thumb, will be on the opposite side on each shape that I'm working with here. Just like with his leg muscles, I think of each muscle as its own shape. Each kind of muscle, like the quad and the kind of the inner thigh and the different ways the muscles striate and pull and create these different shapes, is I'm going to think of them separately to a degree. Now I'm not going to over render muscles for Robin here, like in his leg muscles. I'm going to have some kind of key elements, like a kind of just initially the quad, initially that kind of inner thigh muscle. But I'm not going to over render it because I don't want him to look super bulky. I want him to maintain a sort of a sense of kind of a lean, younger build, not like a like a roided out sort of kind of just massive. I don't want him to have like kind of like Hulk level of muscle rendering. That would be too much definition. I just want a hint at some leaner definition, not just really just chiseled rock, chunky muscles. So that's sort of the thinking there. Same with Impulse. Superboy, maybe just a little more muscular definition because he's kind of from the super family. But even then, I still want to maintain a more youthful sort of physique, more so than if he were like Superman. But we'll address that when we get to the Superboy video next time. So now we got working here with the bow staff, which is a metal bow staff. So I'm using light blues and shades of gray to create that kind of metallic look. It's kind of the blue and the gray kind of helps reflect the world around him, kind of like sky and ground is essentially what I'm doing there. It kind of gives it that a little bit of a chrome or silver sort of look. That's the thought process there. And I think we're just about done. Yeah, there we go. Wow, where does the time go? So there's the finished piece. Let's wrap this video up. And there we go. There are the finished colors for Tim Drake Robin on this Young Justice sketch cover. Had a lot of fun drawing this. I hope you had fun, maybe learned something here, and thanks for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment. All these interactions really do go a long way to help me out, so I do appreciate that. Helps me continue to make these videos. If you haven't heard, Young Justice is being collected in hardcover omnibus. Volume 1 just came out at the local comic shops. It collects the first 20 issues of the Young Justice series I did, written by Peter David, legendary writer Peter David. It collects the Young Justice Sins of Youth storyline. It has the Young Justice Stargirl crossover, the Young Justice Supergirl crossover, some of the Young Justice specials from the first 2 years of the series, as well as a bunch of sketch material, character designs, cover designs, all sorts of behind-the-scenes sketches and artwork in the back. Now, if the omnibus is a little out of your price range and you want to read Young Justice, consider getting the Young Justice trade paperbacks. The entire storyline, including Sins of Youth, Supergirl crossover, Stargirl crossover, and more, are all collected in 6 volumes of trade paperbacks. So you can get them all. They all look great on a bookcase, I gotta tell you. And yeah, you should be able to find those at your local comic book shop as well. If you don't know where your local comic book shop is, I'll have the comic book store locator link in the video description below so that you can hopefully easily find a comic book shop near you. Helping comic book shops helps the comic book industry. So whenever you can buy your comics at a comic book shop, that goes a long way to help all of us get more comic book stories out there and keep this fandom going. So thank you so much for hanging out, and I look forward to seeing you for the last chapter of this video series when we color up Superboy. So until then, I'm Todd Nauck. Keep on drawing, keep having fun. Take care. We're continuing, see all the letters in the word by adding the Copic. Tim Drake Robin, aka the first leader of, why am I air quoting that? That's ridiculous. Thanks for letting me share my tips, my trick. Oh, there are the finished colors for Superboy. Not Superboy, we're working on Robin. Get your character straight. Take 2. We'll just start over. And there we go. There are the finished colors for Robin here now. My approach to drawing backgrounds was a benefit to you as well, and I'll try to get that video background on the docket sometime for the not too distant future to share with y'all in a future video. Did I just say the same thing twice? It also collects the insanely popular Young Justice Sins of Youth storyline. I think I botched that. If you had fun, if you learned something, please hopefully you learned a little bit of something. Learned a little bit of something? That's not even, not how sentences work.